and get that going. Okay, great. Good evening, everybody. Thank you again for being here. My name is Ruben Mercado. I am a program manager here with SHPE, and tonight is we are having an intern success panel. So we have with us a variety of esteemed professionals from SHPE, from all over the country, a wide range of experiences and backgrounds, who are just going to be talking about their journeys from their first professional internships to where they are now in their careers. And we have a set of questions, but we're also going to make sure to leave enough time for people to ask any questions that they have. So just be thinking of those, and we'll make sure to get to that portion of the evening. I'm going to go ahead at this point and turn it over to our panelists. If you all want to hop on, introduce yourselves, and we'll just go in order as they appear here on the screen. So starting with Isabella and moving to the right. And yeah, let's go ahead and get rolling.
Thank you, Ruben. Hello, everyone. My name is Isabella Chirino, and I'm currently a rotational development engineer for Pfizer in McPherson, Kansas. And I had one internship my junior year of college as a biomed technician at Agility Health in Kansas City.
Thank you, Isabella. Leo, can you?
Yeah, hi, everyone. My name is Leo Soto. I'm currently a structure lead design engineer in Boeing satellite systems based in El Segundo, California. I've been a SHPE member for almost 20 years now, somehow. And I had previous 2 internship experiences, both with Boeing in El Segundo, California, one as a payload design engineer, and a secondary in supply chain, which surprisingly was my path back to full-time engineering. Thank you.
Should I just go?
Yeah, go for it.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Elio Morillo. I am currently the avionics test manager here at Blue Origin for the Lunar Permanence Organization. So I'm in charge of doing system level integration and test for our next gen lunar landers. It's been a lot of fun. Prior to that, I was at JPL working Mars missions, both the Perseverance rover and Ingenuity helicopter. And my internships were at GE Aviation, where I worked on engines, manufacturing. From there, I went to SpaceX, where I worked on Crew Dragon, very early, one of the first tests that they had at SpaceX. Then I worked at Boeing twice, one for missiles and one for Black projects, both in St. Louis. And then during grad school, I went to NASA JPL, which led to the full-time opportunity.
Wonderful. Well, great to be able to share the stage with many of you. My name is Karen Santos. I am in the cloud technical sales space at IBM, currently supporting many of our financial services and Wall Street clients to ensure they're having a successful digital transformation journey, doing a lot of conversations around modernization and technology and how that impacts their current businesses. Prior to this, I've interned a few different places. John Deere in Fargo, North Dakota as a manufacturing engineering intern, Honeywell as a quality engineering intern in Lexington, Kentucky area. And then I've done 2 internships with Ecolab companies. One was with Nalco Water, and then the second one was with Ecolab. One role was safety, health, environmental. The other one was more of a basic supply chain role. So yeah, very excited to learn from some of the other panelists and share my experiences with you today.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for introducing yourselves. And again, just for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share with our students. Really excited to get into it. Hopefully one of the things that everybody picked up on is that, again, we've got a wide range of experiences here and just people that have done different roles at different companies. So just be thinking of that and how people's journeys have been shaped, and maybe get some ideas for your own career and your own questions. So the first question that we have for our panelists this evening is, what do you remember being your biggest fear going into your first professional internship? I'm going to go ahead and leave that in the chat here so everybody knows what we're talking about. And yeah, if any of our panelists, anybody has some immediate thoughts, anybody would like to go first?
I can go ahead and start. I think coming into it, especially as it's your first internship, there's a little bit of fear in the sense that, oh my gosh, am I going to get a return offer coming out of this place? I think oftentimes, especially the first internship, you're kind of prepped and you're given the inside scoop. And at the end of the day, I remember I came out of it and was like, oh my gosh, they're really trusting me with a lot of work, and I don't feel like I know any of this enough. And so to a sense, it was almost like I was exposed for not having I guess, the full training that a lot of these people had. But over time, really an internship is meant to teach you, to help you build a lot of your skill set. And more than anything, I think the on the job training that you get in most of your roles, especially in internships, happens to be, I think, what some of the most critical, because it's really you applying yourself and what you know. And at the end of the day, if you can confidently say, you know, I gave this internship my best, I asked questions, I made sure to network, your return offer will be there for you. And the other thing you want to make sure is you're also like the company, right? If you do get a return offer, don't just maybe take it because it's the first one you get. Also, you know, this is your opportunity to interview the company just as much as they're interviewing you. And so don't let any fear hold you back. If anything, maybe take that fear and use it as strength and willpower and say, okay, how am I going to make sure that I come out of this feeling successful, or feeling like I did put my best effort into it? All right, I'll let anybody go. I'll piggyback to someone if I have to.
Thank you, Karen. That was great.
I think to second Karen on that is I was afraid of being, found out and being seen as that poor kid that grew up between Puerto Rico and New York and didn't have the technical jargon that people use in industry, especially because I went into a classical legacy aerospace company at the time, and I was surrounded but what I lovingly call whiteheads. Like most folks were much older. I was incredibly young. It was 3 interns in the group, and everyone else was way older, and most of them were white men. So fortunately, they were embracing. They were great mentors, and they gave me the opportunity to try many things regarding engine design and manufacturing and whatnot at the time. And but imposter syndrome is pretty real. Yet at the same time, to balance that feeling, having the curiosity and also the humility to just accept that I didn't know everything at the time and that I was going to be making mistakes was okay. It was expected. And again, the team was embracing and helped me out throughout the whole experience. So I was very fortunate that my first internship had uh, that theme.
Definitely. With that, I know that you're an intern for a reason. They don't have the expectations for you to change the whole company and to change the world quite yet. But one of my biggest fears was definitely the knowledge gap, as y'all were saying, as I didn't know exactly what I didn't know. So I went in there having expectations, but not necessarily knowing if my ability was at par to the other interns. So it was definitely a lot of imposter syndrome at first, but after a little bit, um, they know that you're there to learn and to gain experience. So you find your footing, you find your resources, you find your people that help. It's definitely scary at first, but eventually you'll get the hang of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can only continue piggybacking off what everyone said. My first internship, I was not just a little scared, I was like extremely scared. I got in a plane and flew out to Los Angeles, which is my first time living extensively outside of New Jersey. So there was that fear. And then I'm also the first time stepping into the corporate world. So I've only worked these menial part-time jobs as a cashier, stocking shelves, etc. So what did I get myself into? How am I going to succeed? And as Elio pointed out, the aerospace world is a highly technical world. So you go into your first meeting and they're talking lingo and jargon that what on earth are they talking about? I have no idea how to even like think of putting satellite together. But as the other said, you're there to learn. they know you're an intern and they know that you're there to learn. And you'd be surprised how often you'll ask questions and how happy they are to answer those questions for you. These are engineers who love talking about their work and very rarely get to brag about it when they leave their workplace. So it worked out, but it was a definite fear that I had going in. And lucky to say I had the right mentors and colleagues in place who helped me push through it.
That's amazing. Thank you all so much for sharing your perspective on that. I love the common thread that I heard through everyone's responses that is something that we tell students all the time, which is that this first internship, or maybe it's your second internship, is meant to be an educational opportunity. So you should be asking questions and they are not expecting you to have all of the answers to things. So I think that's something people struggle with, is just being able to ask questions, but just, you've heard from our panelists this evening, just you absolutely have the ability to do that, and you should be doing that. So thank you all so much for sharing that. The next question that I had for everybody was, what would you say was the most important skill that helped you succeed as an intern and led to where you are now?
Oh, go ahead.
All right, I'll say I'll take one, and it may be a repeated story, but for me, it was definitely, I would say in two parts. One, my communication skills. I've always prided myself on being exceptional in communicating, whether it's questions I have or delivering messages, whatever it might be, and led me into being able to network more effectively while I was an intern. I was asking questions and asking people for their time very openly and easily. And that skill set alone, just that networking, is what got me to meet a lot of people, and essentially is what brought me back the following summer as well, because hey, I know somebody, in the hiring manager who I ended up meeting through networking, his name's Joseph Finken. He was the one who hired me back because, hey, I remember you, this is a good guy, we want to bring him back. So networking to me is the one of the critical skill sets you need as an intern.
Yes.
I think for me, it was actually being curious, like genuinely curious about people, about the work, about the why behind a lot of decisions. I remember my first internship with John Deere. I was in Fargo, North Dakota, and in this plant, they had two different like manufacturing plants because they worked on electrical equipment there, and they also had a section for motors. I was the only one in the electrical engineering place of things. And I remember I was a little bit intimidated because there were no other interns, right? So I really had to show out and make a name for myself in the way I could. And one of the things I remember is quality engineering to me seemed really interesting. The guy next to me was doing it. I was manufacturing at the time. And I just remember seeing his work was so fast paced. And I was like, Tim, what do you do? Like, why are you never at your desk? So we started engaging in conversation. I ended up talking to his boss, ended up talking to his boss's boss. Essentially, by the end of the internship, I was so curious that I ended up girl bossing myself all the way to like the director of quality engineering. I didn't end up wanting to go work for John Deere in that role specifically, but I did take on a quality engineering role the following year with another organization. And so that mindset really did open a lot of doors that I wouldn't have expected. I think to Leo's point, the networking is so critical to be there internally, but also you never know what you're going to learn that might interest you from a different perspective as well.
Absolutely.
I think another important thing to own up is that you really need to be proactive. Don't wait for people to hand you tasks. You have 10 weeks or 14 weeks, whatever your summer is going to look like. It's a short amount of time. In an ideal scenario, people will have projects ready for you, but there are times where they're winging it as much as you are and they won't admit it. And you need to be proactive and look for tasks. Find the gaps. I think feeding into that curiosity, as Karen was saying, is really important. Find the gaps while you're exploring your projects and your teams, and step in where you can and where you can actively complete something in your time there. And I think, unlike Leo, I struggle with communication even to this day. It may not seem like it sometimes, but I struggle with it. And sometimes I have to remind myself, uh, don't assume people know what you know, and try to be as clear as possible. And if that means you need to slow down a bit, it's okay. Slow down a bit and take your time to explain. That clarity and that initiative is definitely going to get you noticed and I think trusted, which is huge, and then eventually hired.
Yeah, definitely with that. The communication skill is a huge learning curve. And I think during an internship, it's the best time to learn the best way to communicate with other professionals. Um, I think having a sense of like professional humility helps a lot. This mindset, I know that as a junior, I used to have like a big ego of like, oh, I know this. And really, I don't know anything with the internship that I was in. And having the knowledge to say, I don't know, but maybe, or I'll find out, or I'll go find the resources that the internship has provided me to find out. Utilizing that, it definitely, it builds trust, like you were saying, and it shows that you're willing to learn and people are willing to teach you.
Wonderful. That's really good insight from everybody. I typed up the common threads and a summary of some of the skills everyone talked about for our students to look over in the chat. Again, we're recording and sending it out also, but just to be referencing. But loving the common themes of communication and taking advantage of the networking opportunities and still asking questions. So thank you all so much for sharing your perspectives on that. I have as our next question, so now being on the other side as professionals and probably interacting with students that are in internship roles, what do you think are some things that are important for incoming students to remember? So this could be just maybe any common pitfalls you've seen students come into recently, or just things that you think are important for them to remember as they're starting this new chapter of their journey.
Yeah, one of the biggest pieces of advice that I've been given as an intern and what I give when we have interns in our department is that closed mouths don't get fed. So you have to ask for what you want. As a professional and having like interns interact with us, we sometimes get caught up in our day-to-day lives and we could think like going to another boring meeting is just like another task to do on our to-do list. But in reality, that is a great opportunity for you to learn and for you to get exposure and to you to have connections with people in that meeting. So ask to join no matter how mundane that person might think, or ask to join like for their lunches, or even if you had absolutely no input or you don't know a single word that they're saying out of their mouth, just ask to join. And then later on, you just get more familiar with the knowledge, or you get more familiar with like the lingo, the professional lingo that takes a lot of time to understand, I think. So yeah, and just be a sponge with the knowledge that the internship is willing to give you and to absorb as much information as possible because the department has you for a reason and they just want to see you learn and grow.
Absolutely.
Make it easy on your mentors and managers by documenting your work. So by the time it comes to feedback and even thinking about hiring you, you have a clear track of documentation of what you've done and accomplished. And some folks like to do weekly statusing, and you can send emails and even do it out of your own initiative, but just create that documentation for yourself so that when it's time for your review to happen, it's really easy to go back and check your notes, especially because like we're all so busy. You're coming onto the team while we're dealing with whatever projects we already have, and our memory fades. And it's nothing personal. It's just that so many things might be happening at the same time. So it's really on you to take ownership on your progress. And I think also the basics: show up on time, be humble, be hungry to help. That energy ultimately is incredibly magnetic, and that's how people will remember you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'll be really quick because I'm just going to reemphasize what was already said. Isabella nailed it when she said it. Just ask questions, be hungry to ask. I've worked with interns in the past, and the ones I remember are the ones who spoke the most. So if it ever came to an opportunity of, hey, do we want to bring this person back? If people remember you and the quality of the work you did, you're that much more likely to be remembered when it's time to, hey, who do we bring back? So don't be that quiet person that people are going to forget, because especially in any industry, people come and go all the time. And, unfortunately, your name, your face can get lost in the shuffle if you're not out there putting forth your quality work out there in the open. So communicate.
I'm going to piggyback off of what Leo just said too, in the sense that your voice is going to be very important. The work you do matters, but the relationships you make matter more. And so connecting with people early, even if it's a simple thank you for the opportunity, it goes such a long way. People love mentorship conversations. They like thank you cards. They like little things that I think as students, sometimes it just becomes very something that you don't think about just because it's always present to us, right? Mentorship conversations, we have millions of those. But I think when you are in a specialized place, you could have a little bit more value, and there's more of the relationship that'll come from it. A couple of other things I want you guys to remember: you're not just an intern. You're fresh of set eyes, or you're a fresh set of eyes and a future leader. And I think that's important for you guys to remember, because at the end of the day, the perspective that you're bringing in, that's what you're really there for. You're there because you can bring that fresh set of eyes. You have different educational backgrounds. You guys come from honestly different generations for some of these people, and having that mindset is so critical. So make sure you don't let yourself try to blend in so much that you erase who you are. Really, your story is just as powerful, and you have just as much to bring into the table. So always remember that.
That's really great. Yeah, I really enjoyed everyone's responses there. Something that all of you touched on really that I think is important for people to remember. We hear the term imposter syndrome a lot, but you're going into these internships for a reason. We work a lot with recruiters and hiring managers and companies that look to SHPE to fill spots that they have for their upcoming summer internships, and they spend a lot of money and time recruiting and looking for talented people to join their organization. So and they're competitive, like especially in the current market. So you 100% belong there, and it's important to keep that what was the term you used, Isabella? Professional humility, but still like owning that you were selected for a reason, and that like Karen was saying, you bring a valued perspective, and to really own that. That was a perfect segue into the next question, which is about networking, which is a term that I'm sure you all have heard a lot, but I'd like our panelists to talk about the importance of networking in their journey, especially for some people who maybe find themselves to be more shy or have a more difficult time kind of putting themselves out there. What would you say are some advice to people in that type of situation, and just the general importance of networking?
I think my advice comes from a place of being a huge extrovert, but I think it's very useful advice. Make sure in your 10 weeks, 14 weeks, whatever it is, I challenge you to at least once a week schedule a coffee chat with someone you don't know, be it within your team or outside of your team, so that you truly get to know what the company's doing, what other projects people are involved in. And sometimes those conversations could easily lead to getting on other projects while you're there. So I encourage you to try your best, even if you're shy, to schedule that once a week, because you never know.
I want to share something that actually worked a lot from an intern that I had an experience with. So we had a simple coffee chat, and after that coffee chat, they actually asked me if I had any people that I recommended for them to talk to. And I thought that was great, because I was like, oh yeah, of course, here's some people that I'm happy to pass some information along to you. I think for them, it was an easier way to get to know who's out there. But then for me, it was also like, okay, they know what they want. They know the conversations they want to have. How can I help them get there? Also, as an extrovert, I'll admit networking has always come very easily to me, but I have worked with so many brilliant engineers and teammates who are a little bit more introverted and shy. And so I would say networking isn't really about being the loudest in the room always. It's about being more intentional. So it can be one conversation, one follow-up message, one thank you email. You don't have to be everywhere. You just need to be present with the people who align with your goals. And so really some of the most impactful relationships I've built have come from hey, I like what you do. Tell me more about it. Or, oh, do you mind if I talk to you about XYZ? I'm curious. It really is not as scary as it seemed. And also, SHPE makes your networking a little bit easier too, right? Because there's other interns that are going through this process with you guys. Connect, figure out what struggles you're having, what things are working for you guys. Maybe it's not the same industry, but I can tell you a lot of corporations have the same problems. And so don't be shy to also, get a feel for what others are doing, and maybe that'll help energize you and inspire you as you continue engaging in your conversations.
Okay, I'll go then. Yeah. All right, but I agree with everything Elio and Karen said, and I'll just touch on once I became an entry level. So one of the things I did was I joined the company employee resource group, or we call them business resource groups now. And the main reason I did that, obviously, one thing was to network, but it was also a breath of fresh air. As I remember when I came in as an intern, especially, there was a group of 30 or 40 of us at our site, new interns for that summer. And I recall specifically, I was the only minority, like Hispanic, Black minority there out of that 40. It felt kind of lonely. So I did want to go out there and network and meet people kind of like me, similar background, et cetera. So I did join the employee resource group. And that got me to introduce a whole array of people that people spoke on. I actually met the company executive sponsor of our resource group. His name is Albert Alfaro, and he became a huge mentor of mine over the years. And it looks like Elio does know him as well, but great guy, great mentor. And then you just learn executives, no matter what level, managers, they're people. They're friendly to approach, they're easy to talk to, and they will be great mentors and advocates for you in your career. And I'm just going to touch on one example that happened to me as far as the importance of networking. In my career, I jumped from Boeing, Raytheon back to Boeing. And the key reason I jumped back to Boeing is that my first mentor as an intern wanted to bring me back to the company because he was now a manager. So
Wow.
he kind of reeled that fishing line, brought me back in. But that's how important networking is years later. He recognized me and wanted to bring me back. But just how important networking is, that's a key example of it.
Definitely. Yeah. To go off of Karen, I think SHPE is a great resource for, and I'm not just saying that. I think it's a great resource for any networking opportunity. I was actually fortunate enough to get my current position in Pfizer at the 2023 SHPE conference in Utah. And if you ever been to one of those, I remember going my sophomore year and I called my mom crying because it was so overwhelming. There's so many students. I was like I'm not gonna get anything from this. But come the next year, I became a little bit more prepared and more extroverted. And I found it was easier to talk to students or grad schools or companies. It just got easier. And networking is the main reason why I have my position currently because I got it at the Pfizer booth by networking with peers at the talks and networking with the hiring manager and doing the interview booths right there. So um, even if it's not within SHPE, use LinkedIn, use everything that you have possible. Use peers' parents, use your university resources, anything that you could think of. And if it's not the right network, you'll find your way. You just have to. It might be trial and error, is what I'm trying to say, but you'll find your people. So that's good.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. Something to be mindful of is that it can be trial and error, and maybe what worked, what didn't work the first time. It's just kind of a matter of putting yourself back out there. And then I love what a few of you touched on as well about just that long-term component. So you mentioned getting a return offer to Boeing based on a hiring man, somebody that you had worked with previously. So you just never know where connections are going to lead down the road and who's going to end up in what positions later, even just from coming to things like this. So I mean, we'll spend some time and get everyone's LinkedIn that's going to be on here later if you want to share it in the chat, because you never know who you might end up working with down the road. So that's really great. Thank you so much. So related to networking, but another thing we've talked about is mentorship, and a few of you have touched on having mentors in your career that have helped guide you. Can you speak on the importance of mentorship in your journey, and maybe some advice on like finding a mentor? Because I know that's a question that we've gotten in the past before. Is just like, how do I go about finding somebody to invest in me in that way? So what works for you in that regard?
All right, I can touch on that first. You know, I've never like really gone out with the intention of networking, just I want that person to be my mentor, but it's always happened kind of in a more organic fashion. I went out to network with the intention, hey, I want to meet people, just, hey, this person's a VP, this person's a manager, this person's a tech fellow. Let me go out and meet them. I go out of my way to meet them. And then from there, the kind of, you could say the relationship, friendship slash mentorship kind of happened organically from there. But how did they end up staying as a mentor is because there was something about their career or life trajectory that I found very inspiring and like, hey, I want to continue picking their brain and learn as much as I can about it. Like, why did they get into it? How did they get there? What were roadblocks that they overcame? Or maybe they have a similar background to mine in terms of when they were a student. Like, how did they overcome that to get to where they are? So I've always approached things of let me just meet people and then the relationship kind of organically takes off from there. Other people have different approaches, but that's kind of what I found works best for me, and to let the relationship build and then whatever happens afterwards happens. There may be more intentional relationships you might look for at other moments, but in my lifespan, I always found the organic relationships with my mentors to be more fruitful than the ones I like, hey, I want this person needs to be my mentor versus, okay, this person just became one.
I think something I wish, well, it's funny. I don't think a lot of mentors of mine know they're mentors of mine. And so with that being said, I don't think you need to wait for someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, I want to be your mentor. It really is not any type of formal program or title. It's really, it comes with someone that you might admire, someone in your class, someone maybe a couple of years ahead of you, a manager, even ship people, right? Who are in positions that you want to be in. You can build really mentorship relationships really just by asking like, hey, can I get your advice on something? And then from there, just making sure you're staying in touch. I think SHPE does a really, really awesome job at having such an expansive network of people who have done things in all different areas of industry, and even have I've met so many people within SHPE that have even moved different industries as well. So definitely start with that as an existing network. I would definitely say to be specific with your ask. So instead of saying like, will you be my mentor? You can say something like, hey, I'm going to be interning in this role, and I would love 15 minutes to learn about your journey just as I'm preparing for my own. And then also, I mean, the follow-up is the most important piece of it. The more that you follow up and the more that you're consistent, that relationship and that mentorship is going to grow over time. So don't be afraid to share your progress. Hey, just finished my internship. This is how it went. Let's connect. Say thank you. Honestly, I'm really big on thank you cards. People do not carry thank you cards around anymore. And I think whenever you can do things that implement a little bit of that personal touch, it's going to go a long way, because at the end of the day, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to build out a relationship. A mentor is someone who's going to help you grow, and so you want to show them like, hey, this is why I'm meant for you to help me in this way, and at the end of the day, this is what you might get out of it. Also remember, you guys can be mentors too, okay? You don't need a fancy title or 10 years of experience. You can help just as much as someone else have helped you. And I think that's where SHPE thrives a lot, because as we lift each other, we're also climbing up. So remember that for when someone asks you, hey, can I have 15 minutes of your time?
Definitely. I think for me, when someone reached out on LinkedIn to be to like have a 15-minute chat, I was so excited. I was like, wow, I made it. It's really fun. I myself have about like 3 to 4 mentors that I see consistently as in like once a month or maybe like once every 2 months. Um, I think that mentors are essential in order to achieve the best version of yourself, either professionally or not, into just day-to-day activities. There's just so much immense value from learning from experiences from those who've walked the path before you, or those from completely different, in my case, like departments within my job. Their mistakes, their lessons, and their stories and their successes, they help you figure out your journey, and they figure out, hey, I really want to do that, or hey, I really want to stay away from that. So they're really beneficial, whether that be peer mentorship or someone that you aspire to be. I think it's just essential.
Yep.
I'm good. Everything was said.
Yeah, absolutely. No, something that all of you touched on that is so crucial is just the importance of authenticity, and that you're just building a relationship with somebody. So approach it like you would anything else in your life, because people really value authenticity and don't like for things to feel transactional. So it's you want to be natural about it. You want to just like form an organic connection with somebody, and that of course is going to lead to mutually beneficial and just like helping along with your career. But just always keep that in mind when you approach somebody and when you're establishing those relationships. Okay, we're doing really awesome on time. We've gotten through a good chunk of the questions, and this is about where I wanted to go ahead and make sure we started getting to some of our student questions. I've seen everybody really engaged in the chat. So at this point in time, I'm going to pause with my questioning, and we'll open it up. If any of our students that are here, if you want to put something in the chat, or if you want to turn your camera on and hop on really quick and ask something, quote unquote, in person, that would be great too. So yeah, let's hear it. What do our guests have to ask from our esteemed panelists?
You guys should take this as practice. Let's
Yeah,
see
exactly.
who's really
Yeah.
curious.
We're getting to the networking part. Okay,
Yeah.
we got our first one from Alba here in the chat, which is, how have you dealt with mistakes that you've made? Really great
love
question.
that.
Everybody makes mistakes. So yeah,
Love
what would you say to that?
Love that question. Own up to it immediately. You're expected to make mistakes. It's more than likely okay. You're gonna break hardware. Your software is gonna bring down production. Like, it's fine. It happens. It's okay. Most things are reversible in some way or form. As long as you own up to it. You look really bad if you are lying or hide it and you get found out. That's a problem. But if you realize you skipped a step while you're running a test, or you made an incorrect assumption, or you took an incorrect direction, it's okay for you to, first of all, just say, hey, I messed up. Here's why. Or I don't know why I messed up, but something's going wrong. Own up to it. It's totally okay. Fail early, fail often. I fortunately live in a world in testing, in test engineering, where we're expected to break things. So it's become very normal for me to break stuff. It's my job. So take that as you will, and just make sure you own up to your mistakes and learn from them. You're gonna make the same mistake multiple times. I've reversed polarity on power supplies multiple times across my different labs. Basic stuff, almost fried millions of dollars worth of hardware. It's okay. It happens. Even now, I wrote a non-compliance report on myself not that long ago. And you learn from this stuff, and then you try and make sure that your team is better than you. At least that's what I do.
I agree with that. You want to own it early and you want to reflect, right? Don't beat yourself up. Just question what did you learn? Why did this fail? What can I do next time? And normalize it. I've had mentors and leaders also share their own mistakes with me too, and it really did help me realize it doesn't make you unqualified, it just makes you human.
Ditto. And nothing more to add.
Same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Elio, I really like what you said, that it just makes it worse when you try to hide it or just like try to play it off later. Anything like that. It's the best policy is definitely just to own up to it before, because as we've been saying, this is an educational opportunity, and you want to learn and you want to ask questions, and they expect that maybe something is going to go wrong. Kaylee had a really great question in the chat as well about any specific advice for turning an internship into a full-time offer, particularly if maybe you want to work in a different group than the one you're currently interning in. So it's really good.
I can take that one.
Awesome.
I mentioned in the beginning, one of my internships was in supply chain. Like, how the heck did I end up there? It was just because that summer it was just it was a tough time in terms of hiring. And so the only opportunity I had to stay within Boeing was in supply chain. So heck, I'll do it. And all summer, PowerPoints, Microsoft Excel engineering, and no type of engineering whatsoever, not putting my degree to use. But I did a really great job in everything that was asked of me. I knocked everything out of the ballpark. And my mentor at that time, his name's Don Johnson, he was asking me, Leo, what do you really want to do? You're doing a great job here, but this isn't the best use of your skill set. So you heard that, I believe it was Elia who said earlier, you got to be transparent and let people know what you want. I let him know I want to be in engineering. I want to be in design. I don't want to do this for my career. And even though I'm doing a great job. So main thing is make sure that the leadership knows what it is you want. And even though they can't provide it immediately, they can at least put you on a pathway to get there where you want. And maybe even meet some of the personnel in terms of the key figures and in terms of whether it's technical people or managers in that department that you want to get into. So in the future, when there is an opportunity, you might be able to take advantage of it. In my case, it was like, hey, next summer, I want you to meet this person. I met the person, as I mentioned earlier, and I got into design, back into engineering. So it all worked out from there.
Definitely. And with these internships that you're not, or at least for some of them, you're not, even though you're assigned to that department, you're not married to them. So venture out if you can to have those conversations and see those coffee chats with the other departments that you want to work for, possibly.
I definitely agree with everything that's been said, right? You want to make sure you're crushing your current role, you're networking outside of your team. You should be transparent with your manager about your goals. So maybe if you start building that trust and you feel like that you have that support and you want to be respectful and transparent, like, hey, I really enjoyed working on your team. I've learned XYZ, but I am also really interested in whatever the case is. Would you be open to connecting me or helping me get feedback on how I could potentially get there? I think a manager, specifically an internship manager, they are also looking to see if you're a role in their team. But more than anything, I think a successful internship is a return offer. And more than likely, a lot of times we're looking at those for full time. And so I do think that if you're transparent, because hopefully you will end up at that organization, you'll have a little bit easier of a time really getting to where you want to be. Something that was mentioned during some of our previous questions was to document your work. So with that being said, make sure you're tracking all your wins, like keep a running list of all the accomplishments that you've had, projects, metrics, any shout outs that you've had too. This is also going to help you build a case when it does come to a full-time role, or maybe if you are looking to apply to a different team. The last thing I'll leave you with is just make sure, again, stay in touch. If the return offer is not immediate, just make sure to still keep that relationship warm. A lot of interns don't follow up. So I think you would also just be standing out just by doing that in general and just saying like, hey, great 3 weeks, still thinking about this. Oh my gosh, there was this solution that I didn't come across or whatever. It doesn't have to be like that. But in general, just make sure you're staying in touch.
Absolutely. Fantastic. We've had a lot of good questions come in the chat, so I'm really happy to see everybody so engaged and just getting those going. But I'm going in order here as they show up for me. But Veronica asked if you have any tips on first impressions and creating comfortable relationships with your team.
Oh my God, this is a good question. I'm going to say curiosity, right? Start with curiosity. You want to get to know people just as much as you want them to get to know you. Read the room, match the energy. Some teammates are very formal, some are super casual. So kind of try to match their energy and introduce yourself with more than just your title. Like if you can bring in a fun fact that differentiates you, maybe it's where you live, maybe it's your favorite food, maybe it's what you do on weekends, something that people can quickly relate to you with, I think that's going to help make you stand out.
¿Por qué no prende la luz?
Oh no. Hot mic, John.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think we had but any other thoughts on the first impression and creating comfortable relationships with your team?
I think for me, all of my team was older and I was the only like woman in my facility. So it was definitely more difficult for me to create those relationships. But the more human that you made yourself and the more like real that you were, it was just easier to connect. So yeah, I wouldn't have to try to impress. I would just be yourself. Yeah.
One thing though, I think there are memorable interns that come off as extremely arrogant. So if you show up and you pretend that you know more than some of the engineers that you're going to be working with, you're going to come off as a bit abrasive. And that ultimately will, even if you do good work, it may kind of it builds a bad image and a bad reputation. You don't want to be that person. There will be times where you know more than the engineers because you're coming in recently graduated. You're probably learning new tools that are maybe not quite, or they exceed what industry is using, and that happens a lot. I'm at a point where I'm realizing there's a bunch of tools that folks are using outside and learning in school that we're not adapting in our own practices, and that's incredibly valuable. And make sure that you present that to your teams if you know it, but present it with grace. Don't just claim that, oh, how are you stuck in this process from 10 years ago? We're already doing this. It's not going to be taken well. Instead, maybe prove in a way, develop prototypes, do more of a show and tell, socialize ideas, because then ultimately you could leave good impact. But if you show up claiming that you know it all and that you know better than the engineers that have been doing whatever it is for 10, 20 years, people are going to get defensive towards it. Well, to say, speak up if you do know new things, be innovative, and be gentle about it where you can. Keep that humility. It's really important.
Absolutely. Yeah, that communication skill comes back into play there because you don't want to make a bad impression. So awesome responses there. I see a couple written responses here to some of the questions that are coming in, but Dario had asked if you can explain the difference between a coach, mentor, and sponsor. And I saw some responses to that, but wanted to check if any of our other panelists had quick thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I know I answered this briefly. For me, I see coaches to help you improve, right? So if you're having a skill set or you want to improve in a specific area, I see coaches to help you more in that short term, to help you with that particular skill. A mentor really does a lot more of reflection and growth. So they share wisdom based off of experiences. They'll help you maybe make critical decisions with your challenges, goals, whatever the case is. And then sponsors are more people that help you advance. So those are door openers. So a sponsor is someone who would advocate for you when you're not in the room. They're usually the ones that will influence to recommend you to different roles, promotions, opportunities. You earn sponsors typically by showcasing how I mean your work and the relationships, but it's also because they believe in the potential that you have.
Absolutely. I'm getting to, there's a lot of good questions and a lot of good comments already coming in the chat, so I'm just trying to keep track of everything. Ken had a longer question in here that I did see some responses come in as well, but just about, since some of you had your experiences rising in your career prior to COVID-19, if there is any type of coping skills or strategic measures do you believe are most useful now after the industrial and market changes due to the impacts from the pandemic? Really good question, really thoughtful.
I'm gonna be honest, I always admit that I didn't go through it. I was formed before the pandemic, so many of my communication skills were matured prior to that. And I personally would like to hear what other students have to say about that. Like how do you cope with potentially some of the blockers due to your lack of experience other than your in-person experience, for example, or whatever it is. I think if students have an opportunity, I mean, yes, the panelists as well, but I'd like to open up the floor to that one because I think I like to learn from students here.
Yeah, I love that, flipping it. Yeah, any of our students have thoughts on that one?
We have a shy crowd.
But if any of the other panelists, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I'm in the same boat as Elio. I'm an extremely extroverted person, and I worked pre-pandemic for X amount of years. Did the pandemic change anything for us? Maybe temporarily. We were virtually temporarily, but we're all back in office now. And actually, I'm a very extroverted person. I love mingling and being there with people. I would rather much be in the office permanently than work from home permanently. It's just my preference in terms of the way I work and the way I am. So I wouldn't say the impact was too heavy, especially in the aerospace field.
I want to talk from a tech perspective, and I think for me, this is going to be a little bit different because I really did do the transition. Like a lot of my internships were pre-COVID, and then I did transition to my full-time job kind of post-COVID. So I've seen just in the last 4 or 5 years alone, technology is evolving insanely fast, and so is the job market. So whether that's learning a new tool, embracing AI, or even sharpening some of your soft skills, ensuring that you have digital literacy and are willing to put in the work to be a lifelong learner, it's going to keep opportunities open for you. I mean, I think we only further saw the tech expansion during COVID because we really started to understand how we could really utilize technology to our benefit. And so that it comes with a hindrance, right? In a hybrid or a remote world, people can't see the way you work. They need to really hear from you. And so any way that you can make sure you're being a proactive communicator, making sure that you're bringing up clear updates, asking for feedback, sharing your progress, it's going to help you stay visible and connected. I think right now, something I'm starting to see is that change is really constant. We're in a time where the job market is starting to get a little scarier in terms of reorganizations or shifts in work models. A lot of people are having some type of return to clients or return to work incentive. And so there is a little bit of uncertainty that comes with that. But in all honesty, if you are able to sit with uncertainty and adapt quickly and still show up with purpose, that I think is the most valuable skill that you can really build. And I think that ability to be adaptable is really what the world has really come out of after COVID.
Definitely agree. Yeah, really thoughtful responses there. Seeing a lot of really good discussion in the chat. Tony had a good question on typical dress codes for internships, which I see most of our panelists have responded to, but yeah, in summary, can really vary by company, and it's better to assume overly formal and overly communicative at first, and then just adjust as you start picking up on the culture. But really good question. I really wanted to get to Alba's question about if you're still early on in your education and you want to experience as many internships and experiences, how do you respectfully turn down a return offer letter without ruining the connection? And I think this is so important because I've seen a lot of people mess this up, and a lot of companies and a lot of like recruiters have long memories. So there's definitely a way to go about it that is delicate and professional while still keeping your best interests in mind. So really curious if any of our panelists have insights into that.
I've been on the receiving end of people doing some really unprofessional stuff. I've handed offers that have been like rejected in ways that I will remember and I talk about as I will now. I went out of my way because a student was asking me to set up an interview panel because of the way things were being handled at the time weren't really convenient. So I really went out of my way to get them an accelerated path into an interview panel. And then the day before, they end up telling me that they accepted an offer elsewhere.
Wow.
I have told everyone here, like, yo, if this person comes through, like and I know them, I'm like, that was not cool because it involved like VP decisions and whatnot. So don't do that. I think that's an extreme example. But being on the other side where I did have multiple offers for internships, for return offers, I think first of all, going back to everything we've been saying is having that connection, establishing those relationships, because that's what they are at the end of the day, being candid with folks. Some of my previous bosses just understood that I wanted to go explore other experiences. And we're in a time where, you can go travel, be at different cities, go learn what the different geographical locations look like for you and the impacts they're going to have in your long-term personal life. Go explore while you can. I think many of us are during our undergrad are in privileged positions to go off without families and just packing our bags and going wherever we want to be. Take advantage of those opportunities while you can and explore the cities, explore the companies, and learn about yourself. But be gentle about it. Tell folks like, hey, and the reality is I want to go learn another aspect of the industry. I want to go learn this other industry, and I'm in my shopping mode. And I want to learn more before I establish myself in this company. And I appreciate, be appreciative, express gratitude, and tell folks that maybe you'll end up coming back and hopefully the bridge is still there for a later time.
Definitely. Any of our other panelists have thoughts, insights, or navigated something similar to that in the past?
I have also turned down a few, and honestly, Elio has it right? You want to express your gratitude. You want to be honest, but you also want to keep it professional. You don't have to go into details. Just say, I'm still exploring and I want to broaden my experience in XYZ areas. And the best thing you can do for yourself is keep the door open. If you want to write a personal note to a manager or even a mentor, not just HR, and let them know how they impacted you, it goes a long way if it is an organization you would want to come back into.
Absolutely. Okay, wonderful. We are just a little bit over time. I got lost in the good discussion. So I definitely want to be respectful of everybody's time, but we want to keep these conversations going. So if people would like to share their LinkedIns in the comment, if any of our panelists feel comfortable sharing their LinkedIn, their emails, in case people have like other questions that they wanted to follow up with, any connections that they want to make. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing here, but this was really fantastic. I want to again just like express my gratitude to Isabella and Elio and Leo and Karen for taking the time out of their schedules to share with everybody and give such in-depth responses, and to our students as well for just being here and asking so many good questions and being engaged. I think people got a lot out of this, and we'd like to do it again. So on that note, when you sign out of here, there'll be a survey that comes up. So for all of our students, if you wouldn't mind filling that out and giving us some feedback on other things that we can schedule similar to this, that would be fantastic. I would also, while we have everybody, if people feel comfortable like hopping on and turning on their cameras, I wanted to do a quick little group photo. We always like to document these things and send them to other potential sponsors and to like future collaborators, just to say like, hey, we did this and it went good. So I'll give it a minute here. If people want to hop on and turn their cameras, then I'm going to do a quick screenshot.
I am popping my LinkedIn in the chat. Honestly, you guys, like, I'm really open to doing this type of stuff one-on-one.
Awesome.
So if you are ever wanted to have a conversation about this, I'm a safe person. I think everybody on this call is a safe person.
Yeah.
So we all want to help you in whatever way we can. And we're really excited for you guys to kick butt in your first internships. And then we're going to come back a year, like not even a year later, a few months later, and be like, yeah, I got my return offer. Thanks to all
Yeah.
you gave us.
Awesome. Okay, see a lot of cameras on, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this in 3, 2, 1. Okay, fantastic. Thank you all again so much for being here. Everybody have a wonderful evening. Reach out if you have further questions. Take advantage of the LinkedIn's and the connections that are in the chat. And yeah, best of luck in your summer internships, and can't wait to hear how it goes. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.